So today I'm going to focus, just like Maria, how you integrate specifications grading and mastery learning in an entire course. How do you modify course basically, to make it work? The course I chose to talk about is a doctoral level course. We have a doctoral program on campus on Ed Leadership, and this course is Leadership Complexity and Systems Thinking. To give you a quick summary of what this course entails, basically the students define, analyze, and propose changes to their particular system that they feel passionate about. If they're teachers, their system may be their own classroom. If they're administrators, principals, superintendents, the system may be the district, or the entire school. For me, for example, my system is my department. Sometimes we get people from private industry, their system is their company. So the main components of the course are four. The first one is to model their system. And that involves defining the system, what's the purpose, what are the elements, how they're interconnected with each other, are they in sync or not, is the system part of a larger system, et cetera, et cetera. The second part is to analyze the system, see how well it works, whether there are any malfunctions in the system, like tragedy of the commons, drift to low performance, escalation, success to the successful, et cetera, et cetera. The third part is, okay, now I know how my system works. I know what doesn't work well. What changes do I need to implement in order to make the system work? And you can start at the very bottom, changing simple parameters, which are easy to change, but they have very small effect on the system, versus working at the top, like changing the goal of the system or trying to create a paradigm shift of how we see each other, how we treat each other, for example, in which case you really get big changes in the system. And the fourth part is the leadership piece. You say, okay, you understand how the system works, you know what you need to tweak in your system to make the changes, but guess what? You need people to make those changes. So whom are you going to talk to? Who are going to be your partners? How are you going to communicate your message? Do you need any external partnership? How do you ensure continuous improvement, et cetera, et cetera? So the class is offered in the summer, which is another reason why I allow them, to work and rework assignments as they have time. So I'm going to start with a traditional way of grading. And at 19, I was using a traditional way of grading. So I have 4 big write-ups that, when put together, basically constitute their chapter number 5 of their doctoral dissertation. And so the system model was worth 15% of the grade, the system analysis 15%, change 15%, leadership 15%. Then I had them do a little self-assessment online based on a textbook we use, and that was another 15%. Class participation, we have very lively discussions, whole group and small group class. So that was another 15%. And finally, the oral presentation on the last day of class, that was worth, 10%. Once I discovered specifications grading, and that was a little bit before the beginning of this past summer, I immediately changed the syllabus and I implemented specifications grading. So one of the things I noticed is the points don't make sense anymore. Dividing everything into equal segments, 150 points, for each assignment, it just doesn't work like that. Because I had to start with the skills that I wanted the students to get out of each assignment. Those skills are embedded in the course learning objectives, right? So for system modeling, I came up with 19 CLOs. And because I wanted to use a scale, I'm going to show you in a minute, which provides a little bit more resolution. I have a high pass and a low pass. So I multiply 19 by 2. So I basically have 38 point max. And you may think, 38 points. Okay, so if a student, gets 30 points, they should get an A. Well, it doesn't work like that. First of all, you don't need 38 points because you look at the skills and you sum up the skills. I typically allow them to miss a few non-essential CLOs and still be able to get an A. So the way I worked it out for this particular assignment, all you need is 25 points, including all essential CLOs to get an A. The second assignment, I had more CLOs, more things I wanted them to address, and so I came up with 46 points, system change, 22 points, leadership, 20 points, et cetera, et cetera. So the assignment grade is never a fixed percentage of the maximum number of points available. The points are basically there, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 0, if they need to revise things. So I'll before I show you my full grading skill and the rubric I'm using. In the beginning, when I taught the first time, I figured this is a doctoral class and I've done this to my undergrads. Here's assignment number 1, model your system. But what does that mean, Dr. Mourtos? Well, we discussed it in class. We have a book. We talked about how to model the system, figured it out, right? That's I found very quickly, that's not a very good approach. The students don't know exactly what to include and what to leave out. And also for me, when I try to grade those write-ups, I have no idea how to give a 76, a 99, 118, or 147 points. It becomes very, very subjective. So a little bit better, I started putting some buzzwords in the description of the assignment. Define your system, describe its purpose, describe the elements of your system, both tangible and intangible, blah, 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 blah. So I gave them a little bit of, context of what they should include, in their assignment. It was still difficult for me to decide how to assign points out of 150 points. And it's also difficult for the students to know exactly what they need to include in order to earn, a perfect score. So the next epiphany I had was, why don't you ask them questions that they need to address? So put prompts for their write-up. And for prompt, I assign a number of points, which was what I thought was important. So question number 1, what is your system? Question number 2, what's the purpose or the main function of your system? What are the elements of your system? Do you have any intangibles, et cetera, et cetera? And if you notice that not all of them have the same weight, the last one, I asked them to sketch a model diagram of the system, which for some of them, it's mind-boggling. I spent like 45 minutes to an hour with each one of them outside of class to show them how to sketch, the system diagram. But it is a lot of fun. And so I made that worth, 50 points. And when I became aware of specifications grading, which by the way, was just last spring, I simply turned each question into a CLO. So for example, the prompt question that I had, how does your system work to ensure its own perpetuation? You just pick an action verb and you make a CLO out of it. So the CLO is students should be able to describe how a system perpetuates itself. In that particular case, how their particular system perpetuates itself. And then when I come up with a rubric, I basically define the criteria based on the CLOs that I came up with. So in this case, it's not much. I picked one of the easiest one. So the criterion on the rubric is you need to have an accurate description of how the system perpetuates itself. And I know I could probably, provide more. So let me show you the rubric before we go on with the PowerPoint. So this is basically, can you guys see my Excel spreadsheet? Okay. So this is basically how I grade their assignments. And I do this on Canvas, of course, so I'll show you on Canvas, in a second. So I came up for the first assignment, as I said earlier, with about 19 course learning objectives. I decided that the first 4 were essential. So I would not allow any student to miss any of the first 4 and get a passing grade on this assignment. The same thing with 15 and 14, which has to do with feedback loops, describing feedback loops in the system. I think this is pretty important. And then finally, the system diagram. Remember that was worth 50 points in the original traditional mode. I decided this is, very, very essential CLO. So how does a student get an A? If you look at the 19 CLOs, you can have a high pass, which will give you a 2 for each CLO, or a low pass, which can give you 1. So I decided that if the student gets 8 high passes and 9 low passes, that's 17. That means 2 of them, they may miss them altogether. But they include all the essential CLOs. And on the essential CLOs, they may just get a 1. They may just get a basic, understanding. Then they deserve to get an A. If they get 16 low passes, so still allow them to miss 3 of them, then they should be able to get a B. Okay. And I know there are a lot of nuances here. For example, I was discussing this with Maria yesterday. So what happens if a student does a fabulous job on all of them, but they miss one essential? Now, what do? Do you say, well, you're not passing, go back and, address that essential CLO, or you just let it slide, with an A minus, So these are some decisions that, I had to make. On the system analysis, because there are a lot more, things that the students need to address, I had 23 CLOs. So you see the number is not even, it's not 100 points, not 150 points. It depends on what are the skills that I expect the students to demonstrate in each of these assignments. So I had 23. The last 3, I defined them as essential, 14, 15, 16 essential, and also the first 3 as essential. And actually, I was going to show you an example, from the first one. Did I mark it here? Yeah. So this fellow, for example, had only 9 high passes and 12 low passes. So I had said you need 10 high passes to get an A and 10 low passes. So I figured, okay, I'll give you an A minus. This fellow had 18 total passes, and I said, you needed 20 low passes, to get a B, including all essential CLOs. So I gave him a B minus because he also had missed, 1 essential. And this fellow here had missed several essentials, so I gave him need revision. So same thing with system change, leadership. For some of them, like the presentation, for example, because it was very, very condensed and it was a summary of the entire course, basically, on 5 slides. So they had to talk about their system, present their system in 5 slides. I decided every single slide was essential, so you couldn't miss, anything. And that's basically, my grading scheme. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. So here is the final grading. Obviously, if a student gets straight A's, they get an A in the course, right? But now what happens if they get a B minus on one assignment, a B on another assignment, how do I decide that? One way to do it is basically just do a weight. So this assignment is worth 15%. So 4.0 times 1.5. The B is 3.0 times 1.5. So I ended up with 3.57 average. So that's a B plus, right? For the student at the bottom, I ended up with 3.7, so that's an A minus. So that's another way, to do it. So how is mastery achieved? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the class is taught in the summer. It's very condensed. Some of these people are working full time, during the course. So I have to be very flexible with timelines. So I do post deadlines, to make sure that they have something to guide them. But if a student misses a deadline, then I accept late write-ups. Hardly ever any student earns an A in their initial submission. It doesn't matter how much time we spend in class, one-on-one for 45, 15 minutes. It's just a matter they don't have the time, to invest, right away, to get an A. So what I do is I meet with them as many times as necessary. Sometimes with some students, I meet 2 or 3 times and go over their system because they have questions about the different concepts and how they are translated into their own particular system. And then they may resubmit each assignment as many times as they want, as many times as they are needed to get a passing grade, or in their case, a desirable grade. So students who don't get an A in the class are typically students who stop trying after they get a B. I have students that give up, say, no, I want to get this over with, it's summer, I'm burnt out. I want to play with my kids, and B is good enough. So that's basically the mastery. I had a student. Let me stop sharing, and I'll share my Canvas screen. I have a lot of students who are really absolutely fabulous, but I just get a kick out of students who will come back over and over and over and work with me to improve their understanding and improve their write-up and get an A or A plus in the course. So you can see here the rubric. So the criteria are described on the left-hand side. I put an E to designate that criterion 1, 2, 3, and 4 are essential. And I do use extensive comments if I don't give them a 2. Sometimes I still add comments even though they earn a 2, because there are different ways to look at their system, at the questions, and how they address it. Sometimes I also add comments on their text itself. So this particular student, this is not the first try probably, I don't remember, but maybe second, third try. They missed a couple of questions, okay, and that's fine. They got 34 out of 38. Again, that doesn't matter. What matters is how many of the essential they addressed, and how many high passes they had, and how many low passes. So that's basically the convenience of using Canvas. I have typed in all my rubrics, I import them, and then I'm able to grade the assignments on the spot. One thing I have not managed to do yet is what Maria did, to create colors to show how many learning objectives each student has met. So I'm hoping to learn how to do that in the near future and integrate it.